It started on a Tuesday, though it might as well have been any day. The air felt stale, like it hadn't moved since dawn, and I carried the weight of a familiar routine. Brown paper bag in one hand, keys in the other, the scent of her favorite. Almond croissants wafting through the car. A small gesture of comfort for a marriage I'd been nurturing like a sick plant. When I walked in, the place felt different. Quieter somehow, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. She was at the kitchen table, laptop open, hair tied back in that casual yet deliberate way she always did when she was about to drop a bomb. Liana didn't even look up when I set the bag on the counter. Just a slight flinch of the mouth like a wince. My stomach tightened. I'd seen that look before. It was the same one she wore when her sister forgot her birthday, or when the delivery driver brought the wrong kind of wine, only this time I knew it wasn't about takeout. "We need to talk," she said. Her voice was as flat as the countertop. I pulled out the chair across from her, feeling like I'd just been summoned to a tribunal. My heart pounded. It shouldn't have been a shock. We'd been off for months, circling the same dead conversations. But this felt different. She met my eyes then. But there was no warmth, no memory of the way she used to smile at me when I walked in. No echo of our wedding day when she'd called me her safe place. Just resignation. "Honestly, you're draining." Her words hit like a bucket of cold water. I blinked. "Draining?" She sighed, already exasperated like I was a child, asking too many questions. "I can't be myself around you anymore. I need a break. I need to remember what freedom feels like." My hands gripped the table's edge. "Liana, what are you talking about? We've always given each other space. I've never—" "Don't text, don't call," she interrupted, her tone sharp enough to slice me in two. She stood abruptly, shoving the chair back, and grabbed her purse from the floor. She moved with purpose, with the kind of certainty that made me feel like I'd been left behind long before this moment. "Wait." I tried, but she was already at the door. She paused, just long enough to glance over her shoulder, and for a second I thought I saw something. Regret, maybe, but then her eyes hardened. "Goodbye," she said. No hug, no apology, no explanation beyond that single word that felt more like a curse than a farewell. I heard the front door close. It was a sound I'd heard a million times before, her leaving for errands, for brunch with her sister. But this time, it sounded final. I sat there, staring at the half-finished cup of coffee in front of me, her lipstick print on the rim like a cruel joke. My mind replayed her words, the way she said draining, as though my love had become a burden too heavy for her to carry. 4 years of marriage, 4 years of planning vacations, buying throw, pillows, debating what color to paint the guest room. 4 years of thinking we were in this together. I'd always thought love was about compromise, about showing up, even when you didn't feel like it, about holding each other's broken pieces until they fit again. I didn't see the end coming. Not like that. In the kitchen, with the sun barely risen, I stared at the croissants, now cold and untouched, like a gift that had been rejected. The silence pressed in around me, thick and unfamiliar. I thought about all the times she'd said she needed space, how I'd respected that, given her weekends with friends, solo spa days. Even that trip to Bali last year, I thought I was being supportive, giving her room to breathe. But apparently, even that wasn't enough. I sat there long after she left. The coffee went cold, the croissant stale, the smell of almond turning sour in the air. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt hollow, like she'd taken something with her that I didn't know how to get back. Her name is Liana, and I never saw that woman again. Stretching long across the tile floor, I opened the fridge. stared at the neat rows of leftovers she'd always labeled with sticky notes. For lunch. Don't forget to eat. Love you. I ripped them off one by one, crumpled them into a ball, and tossed them into the trash. Her handwriting looked like a stranger's. The love you felt like an insult now. I leaned against the counter, the cold granite pressing into my palms. I thought about the nights I'd spent pacing the living room, waiting for her to come home, from her me time. The hours I'd spent staring at my phone, wondering if she'd text, if she'd call, if she'd remember, that I was waiting. And now, here I was, holding the pieces of a marriage she'd already decided to abandon. The clock on the wall ticked in time with the beat of my heart, each second marking the start of a new life, one where I wasn't the man who waited for her to love me back. Thought about Isadora, about the message I'd sent. I hoped she'd find her own freedom, her own strength, to walk away from the man who betrayed her. Because if there was one thing I'd learned, it was that sometimes the only way to heal is to cut the infection out completely. I wiped my eyes, surprised to find them wet. Not from sadness, but from relief. The truth hurt, but it was better than the lies I'd been living in. I picked up my phone one last time, scrolled to Liana's contact, and pressed block. Her name disappeared from my screen like a ghost finally laid to rest. I stood in the silence of my apartment, the space she'd once called home, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. I wasn't the man she'd called draining. I wasn't the man who'd been too nice for too long. I was the man who'd finally chosen himself. And as the night settled around me, I felt something like peace. I knew there would be hard days ahead, moments when her voice would echo in my head, when her laughter would haunt my dreams. But I also knew that every step forward was a step away from the man who'd let her treat him like an afterthought, receipts and regret. That's all she'd left me with, but I'd trade them both for the chance to start over. 2 weeks later, I heard her voice again, for the first time since she'd walked out. It came through in a voicemail, unexpected, intrusive, like an old ghost rattling chains at my door. I'd been standing in the kitchen, stirring my coffee, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the fridge. My phone buzzed on the counter. I stared at the notification, Liana's name, glowing in the dim light, and I hesitated. I didn't want to hear her voice, didn't want to know what new performance she had rehearsed, but I pressed play anyway. "Hey," she started.